The runaround day of the American diplomat suspected of Soviet spying, striking Soviet miners, and Gorbachev's latest appeal, and why some lived while others died in that United crash.
NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw.
Good evening. A veteran American diplomat suspected of spying for the Soviet Union still has not been arrested, but he's not exactly free either. The case of 54-year-old Felix Bloch drew comments from President Bush today and lots of attention from the press. NBC's James Polk.
This is Felix Bloch on the run today. The career diplomat now suspected of being a Russian spy, leaving his daughter's house in the New York suburbs, pursued by the press and by the FBI. Carloads of federal agents keeping Bloch under surveillance wherever he goes. President Bush gave this indication today of how serious the Bloch case may be.
And the minute I heard about it, I was aggrieved, because it is a very tragic thing, should these allegations be true.
How badly could this hurt the U.S.?
I don't think anyone could give you a full damage assessment at this point. The investigation is going on.
The State Department confirmed it suspended Bloch a month ago and has let him back in the building only once to pick up his personal effects.
Mr. Felix Bloch is currently under investigation by the FBI.
Bloch reportedly was spotted in Paris this year, meeting a KGB agent and handing him a briefcase, its contents unknown. Sources say the FBI, despite this round-the-clock watch on Bloch's movements, may not have enough to make an arrest in the case without any admission of wrongdoing and no real evidence of what may have happened overseas. Bloch, born in Vienna, returned there as the #2 man in the U.S. Embassy the last several years. This former KGB agent says a diplomat of Bloch's rank would have been a major catch.
It means that he had access to extremely sensitive secrets of government of this country.
Bloch was a close friend of Austria's foreign minister.
My personal reaction was shock, personal deep disappointment.
Late today, the State Department said Bloch has surrendered his diplomatic passport. But given the problems in this case, any arrest may be days, even weeks away. James Polk, NBC News, Washington.
In the Soviet Union, the most serious economic crisis of Mikhail Gorbachev's presidency, striking coal miners, prompted him today to make another national television speech. But Gorbachev's critics in the new Soviet parliament say this crisis is a commentary on perestroika's failures. NBC's Tom Pettit is in Moscow.
For the second day in a row, the beleaguered Gorbachev went on national television, again pleading for the strike to end. Today's debate in the Supreme Soviet was extraordinary, almost astonishing, with Gorbachev under fire on live television. He said, "We're coming out of a very serious crisis, the biggest test during 4 years of perestroika." Boris Yeltsin, arch critic of Gorbachev's economic reforms called perestroika, said perestroika over the past 4 years hasn't given the people what they were promised. Gorbachev heard many voices of despair about perestroika and the coal strike. These are delegates to the highest elected body in the Soviet Union, and today they cut loose.
The Donetsk miners want a guarantee, just a guarantee. Already they don't believe in anything or anyone.
This is not just the working class striking. This is the whole people showing they have been led into despair.
Tonight in Donetsk, the government put up TV sets for the miners to watch a rerun of Gorbachev's speech. Gorbachev's audience was the holdout, die-hard strikers who worked the mines around this part of the Ukraine, 550 miles south of Moscow. To them, Gorbachev said workers should go back to the mines. Maybe it worked. Tonight in Donetsk City Square, there was some talk of returning to the mines, but more talk of staying out, at least overnight. But the strike crisis for Gorbachev will not end until all the miners return. This may well be Gorbachev's most difficult hour. Tom Pettit, NBC News, Moscow.
And in Japan tonight, the biggest political shakeup of the post-war years for that country. The second prime minister to fall in just 7 weeks, and big election gains for Japanese socialists led by a woman. Oh, highly unusual. NBC's Diana Kirky in Tokyo.
Sosuke Uno said he will step down because he is responsible for the Liberal Democratic Party's worst electoral defeat in 34 years. The big winners were the socialists. The election may herald a multi-party system in Japan.
Maybe this is the starting point for the political realignment in Japan.
The socialists are led by Takako Doi. Riding the momentum of victory, she is working to forge a coalition of smaller parties in the upper house. If she succeeds, the coalition could force an early general election, and Doi could conceivably become Japan's first socialist and first female prime minister. But she first needs to win a socialist victory in the powerful lower house, where the Liberal Democrats hold a majority. And at least today, the prospect of a socialist-led coalition didn't hurt Japan's currency or stock markets, as the yen strengthened and stock prices rallied. Relations with the U.S. are also likely to remain stable.
And we do not want to destroy our relationship, our friendship in the economical field and social field, political field.
The socialists have not specified their economic or defense policies. They have discussed revising the treaty under which 50,000 U.S. troops are based here, but Doi has said American forces would remain. But U.S.-Japanese trade relations could worsen as a result of yesterday's election, since the socialists are more protectionist than the Liberal Democrats.
I think it'll make the Japanese government more reluctant to settle the existing trade disputes on terms that are likely to satisfy the Congress.
The opposition owes its victory in large part to women voters. Women normally manage the family money in Japan and were angered by a new sales tax imposed by party leaders. And they were critical of Prime Minister Uno for allegedly paying this geisha and others for sex. The Liberal Democratic Party will now go about the business of finding a new prime minister. That won't be easy for a party tainted by corruption and sex scandals and rejected at the polls. Diana Karicki, NBC News, Tokyo.
Also coming up here tonight on NBC Nightly News, the latest on the investigation of that United crash, and on Spotlight, our investigative series, the dangerous side of hiring financial planners such as these two who were mostly expert at losing money. Deborah Norville is the reporter. And in a small Mississippi town, this is a cause for rejoicing. Running water for the first time. Kenley Jones in Blue Hill.
Thank you, Lord.
One of those aboard United Flight 232 died of injuries early today, bringing the number of confirmed deaths now from last Wednesday's crash to 106, with 5 more listed as missing and presumed dead. NBC's Robert Hager has more tonight on this crash investigation.
Investigators feel they know why 185 of those on board managed to escape this seemingly inescapable inferno. This is the seating plan of a DC-10. Preliminary information indicates those who were killed were in these seats, almost all of them in the front and in the rear, while those who survived were sitting here, mostly in the center section. Investigators theorize that this first fireball was less lethal than it appeared. A flash fire from aviation fuel sprayed outside the plane. It was brief, and much of the wreckage may have skidded clear of it. Investigators believe the deaths occurred because the front and rear sections disintegrated during the crash, while the center section, its structure made sounder by joints with the wings, remained intact. The cockpit broke off as one piece, also intact, and the pilots survived. Investigators credit the quick arrival of rescue workers on the scene, and they also say they can see from the wreckage that new fire-retarding aircraft seats, required by federal regulations a few years ago for all commercial planes, gave passengers a vital extra few minutes to escape. In another crash just 11 months ago in Dallas, the new fire-retarding seats were also given credit. 94 people escaped from this Delta jetliner, many pouring out the big split in the fuselage. A new federal study indicates 30 of the survivors may owe their lives to those seats. Other devices are under development, such as this aircraft sprinkler about to be tested by the U.S. government, along with hoods with small oxygen tanks to help passengers or crews escape through thick smoke. The Sioux City accident, demonstrating that crashes can be survived, adds new urgency to all this work. Robert Hager, NBC News, Washington.
It was a violent flash of nature that brought heroic and dramatic rescue efforts in Albuquerque, New Mexico. David and Peter Alvarado were skateboarding in a drainage canal Sunday when they were trapped by a 3-foot wall of water. Police and firefighters rushed to the scene, but even they needed help. 14-year-old David was rescued several miles down the channel. His 16-year-old brother Peter was within reach of rescuers when suddenly he was swept away by a piece of debris. Today, rescue workers pulled out Peter's body 7 miles away. Last Wednesday, Mark Wellman began a climb of El Capitan in Yosemite National Park, a difficult feat under any circumstances. For Mark Wellman, however, it is truly extraordinary. His legs have been paralyzed since a climbing accident 7 years ago. Wellman and his partner Mike Corbett are now at about the 2,500-foot mark of El Capitan with about 1,000 feet to go. They made it over the most dangerous part of the climb, Shield Roof, late yesterday.
I'm tired, man. I'm whipped. My body's hurting. It ain't comfortable at all, man. Anything but comfortable.
The heat has set the climbers back a day. They now hope to reach the summit of El Capitan sometime on Wednesday.